So yeah, good evening, everyone. A quick hello again. We started the conversation and the call, but I forgot to hit the record button. So here we go. So yeah, we're talking right now a little bit about the role of, I guess, the digital landscape that we live in, and how that's evolving, that's ever changing and growing at a very, very fast rate as well, isn't it? And certainly, if we want to be relevant in 5 years' time, definitely 10 years' time, of course, but even in 5 years' time, then learning some digital skills, I think, is really, really important.
I've got my camera off.
Yep, that's no
Whoops.
problem. So no problem. I'll put this into mute all mode. And of course, we're going to do what we did last week. I want to carry on from the topic of last week and expand a little bit, and we'll kind of go in the same style that we had last week in terms of kind of sharing thoughts and experiences and what have you. But yeah, Dee, I think it's going to be great having her on. Kim's got, I think, about 23,000 followers on Instagram. Many, which is not a huge following in terms of social media influencer, right? You got people there with 1 million followers. Mike's son has got, I think, multiple millions of followers on TikTok. But she's done it over the last 12 months, right? So within a 12-month period, she's built up a really solid audience. Many of her videos have gone viral and had hundreds of thousands of views. So it's got great content, and her engagement rate is phenomenal. So she's got a very targeted audience. She's got great engagement. She's got brands reaching out to her now looking for collaborations and for her to endorse their product and do all sorts of different stuff. And like I said, she was recently on the local news channel as a social media influencer, giving tips on all this kind of stuff. So she's certainly learned a lot and is thriving and doing very well with it. So if you are interested in learning how to get started in that social space, it's at least worthwhile understanding what's really expected, because there are a lot of people that I've seen, I'm not sure about you, that try to dilute what is required and what is necessary. Her Instagram, yeah, people are asking for her Instagram. I'll put it in the chat. Give me 1 second. Why can I suddenly not find the chat? I can't find the chat.
It should be beside your share screen, Ben.
Yeah, it's moved around. Give me 1 second. Chat, here we go. There we go. It moved. Okay, so oops. So that's her Instagram handle. It's on, yeah, like I said, it's on Instagram. Mama Can Build It. The name in and of itself will be instructive, okay, because she's targeting, her objective is to help empower and encourage women to pick up tools and give it a go, right, and not be waiting around for guys to do it for them or what have you. It's maybe that's indicative of our marriage, I don't know. But she is just doing great. So she's targeted women that want to learn how to do DIY, right? And so she's got a very targeted audience. And like I said, we'll learn more about this tomorrow. But like I said, very helpful to get an honest interpretation of what is required on social media, because there are a lot of people that say, here are these simple tricks that will blow your Instagram up and this and the other. And it's like, most of all that stuff is garbage, right? It's not true. They're doing that to get their own audience. They're doing that to get you to buy stuff from them. And there's all those types of things that go on, all these little hooks that they use to get your attention for their gain, not necessarily to help you in any way. So this will be a really honest insight and look into social media use for becoming, entrepreneurs on a digital space. Anyway, last week we talked about persistence. And I think we had a great conversation last week in understanding what that was, examples of it in our lives and so on. I wanted to carry on that theme a little bit because I thought the discussion was really instructive, very inspiring. I came away feeling better off for the conversation that we had, right? And it was just great. So I want to kind of expand on that tonight and get into the space of resilience. It kind of goes hand in hand with persistence. I've got a couple of quotes here that I want to share just to kind of kick the conversation off. So I like this quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson: "The only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be." I really like that. Um, so, so certainly self-determination is really, really important. I like what Henry Ford here said, where he said, "Failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently." All right. So we talked about last week when we were talking about persistence, the stickability that we need, in network marketing and in our Niken businesses. And I think this is maybe a sister virtue of persistence, resilience, because it kind of goes alongside of emotional grit and determination, and that kind of feeds into persistence. But what would be any thoughts as to how you would define resilience as an entrepreneur? Do you want to raise your hand and unmute yourself and share a thought? Yeah, Elaine.
Bouncing back.
Bouncing back. I really like that. And it's a really, that's not necessarily something that can be taught in many instances. We can certainly develop it, right? But that our ability to bounce back, kind of, give me your thoughts here, Elaine. But is that something that you've learned through experience, through practice, through having the fall down and then getting back up a few times? How have you learned to bounce back?
I think mostly I've learned to bounce back by finding optimistic things, by a new perspective.
Mm.
Not, which is maybe what Henry Ford said,
Yeah.
trying again, but more intelligently, meaning
Yeah.
change something.
Yeah.
And so out of all of the things that seemed bad, there are some good things in there. So, so find them and go for those with renewed energy, rather than let everything just, get you down.
And it's a real balancing act, that, isn't it? Because sometimes, we might do the right thing, but it takes longer than we expect. And that's where persistence comes in. But sometimes that resilience requires that, to your point, that need to evaluate, pivot, and come back at it from a different angle and a different perspective.
I think it's funny. And it's kind of a way of having somebody else help you maybe put a little perspective on it. I was telling a neighbor, I was trying to share something with a neighbor, and he is on my chicken list. He teaches classes at the university of 300 students, and he's known as really mean. And anyway, so I finally did, and he didn't let me know whether he'd seen my information. I mean, anyway. So I finally asked him, and he was so curt in his, like, "Elaine, I don't want anything to do with that." It really, really hurt me. And I told Dave Johnson about it, and Dave said, "Do you know, I think that's worth 2 rejections."
I like that. He is awesome.
And it just made me feel better. Like, yeah, that was a really bad one.
You
Like,
got 2 for the price of 1 there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I like that. And a good lesson that you kind of shared there, Elaine, is when we do get those moments, it's good to share it versus just bottle it up and dwell on it, right? Getting that external perspective is sometimes needed as we reframe things. Sometimes we can't do that by ourselves, but getting that other person to kind of come in and give you a lighthearted perspective, I think certainly helps. Maggie.
3 things come to mind. First of all, the first image that popped into my head, when we were kids, we had this blow up clown that you could punch and he would go down and he would bounce right back up. So that's the bouncing back up. The second was related to what Elaine said, that about, reaching out, because one of my resilience tactics is I surround myself with cheerleaders, people who support me and I can share things with. I think everybody needs their own hallelujah chorus, is what I used to always say.
Yeah.
And So I've created that because I didn't always have that. I often had people in my circle who weren't exactly, encouraging. So having that helps me with resilience. And the third thing is I grew up on a farm, and there's nothing that is more resilient than a farmer who's been farming his entire life.
Yeah.
And, you have good years, you have bad years. And my dad, I used to say, Dad, well, what would you do if you won the lottery? Because he always used to buy a lottery ticket. He said, well, I'd spend it till it was all gone and keep farming.
Mm.
And I'd spend it on the farm.
Yeah.
So I thought, wow, okay.
Yeah.
So it's, that life lesson from growing up on a farm, and the Bobo, the clown image from way back in childhood, and the lessons learning from that was most important for me is to surround myself with positive people.
Yeah.
And they don't have to always agree with me. However, I know I can trust them and I can go to them, people like you, Bo too, but
Yeah.
you and Mike and so many other people that I've connected with in NECAN, because if I lose my edge, I can have it restored by that community of people.
Yeah. It's so true. So true. I can I share a quick story, Barbara, before I jump to you? Is that all right? Thank you. I love that example of having, the cheerleaders, because I think that's really important. Yeah. And like you said, you don't want yes men. You don't want to be surrounded by yes men, because that doesn't lead you down the right path. Right. It just gives you a false sense of security. Right. And that's not going to help you all that much. But a great example. Yeah, I've often thought, as I've been kind of raising children and things, it's often caused me to kind of reflect on the psychology of human nature, right? And how we changed from little kids into adults. And I wonder sometimes if we don't change that much, that it's just more visible as little children. And we kind of mask it and hide it a little more as we become more sophisticated as adults. But a good example that kind of springs to my mind from what Maggie was sharing was, I remember when I was a fairly young dad, and our kids were at kindergarten, preschool, and they had a preschool sports day, right? Which is the most adorable, cutest thing you've ever seen, right? It was running races, essentially, was all it was. But because they're 3 and 4 years old, it was also fancy dress. So everyone came dressed up as little woodland creatures and fairy tale creatures and what have you. So they're all dressed up like little pixies and garden gnomes and all sorts of things, looking just absolutely adorable. Goodness knows how they were supposed to run in these costumes, but they were. But this was the interesting thing, because they were so little, because they were only 3 years old, they didn't really know what was going on, right? And so what you had was, you had the field near the preschool and the track where the kids were to run. Along the side were all the mums and dads prepared to cheer their kids on. At the end, at the finish line, you had some of the school teachers, and they were holding little bags of candy to kind of shake in the kids' direction to say, come over this way, right? It's down here, here's the prize. And so they kind of fire the starter gun, what have you, and encourage them to run off. And because they didn't quite know what they were doing, the parents were over the top encouraging. And of course, they're adorable little kids. So the parents are championing their little boys and girls. What was fascinating was, I remember on one occasion that this little girl, she runs out in front. She gets right, she's kind of leading the way. She crosses the finish line, everyone cheers, and she just keeps on running because she doesn't know the race is over, right? It's just, she just keeps, and then there's a mad scramble to stop her before she gets to the road. And then on another occasion, there was a little girl running. Her mum was screaming out to her, championing her from the side, but she got so excited, the mother, that she kind of distracted her daughter, and she got upset. She was out the front as well. She got upset. She thought her mum was yelling at her, was upset with her, and then turned to her and she ran in her direction to get comforted. The consequence of that was everyone that was following her, because she was out in the front, just followed in that direction. I don't think anyone quite finished that race. They all ran to the parents. And this just kind of went on and on and on. It was adorable and just hilarious to watch. But I see that crowd on the sidelines cheering on their little kids, right? And I think of how much they need it. They responded so well to that encouragement. And I don't think we change as we get older. I've seen Olympic athletes, as they're getting ready to run their 100 meters or their 400 meters, and they start doing this to the crowd. They kind of look over at the crowd and they say, and they're getting the crowd to kind of hype them up, kind of let's get going here. Let's kind of start clapping, and they get the crowd kind of moving and clapping and applauding, and then they get ready and they get in the zone, and they take off and they run. And I think in business, like Maggie said, it helps our resilience when we have that crowd behind us that's ready to clap and cheer and applaud and encourage us forward. We really need that. It's not weakness on our part to need encouragement. It's human nature. And I think it's a really important part of fostering and developing the bounce back that Elaine was referring to earlier. We need that ability to bounce back. It's hard and discouraging sometimes, but having a crowd to lift you up and to help you get back on your feet and to clap and cheer and applaud your efforts, even when you get it wrong, they let you know that, hey, it was a good effort nonetheless, right? That was a 2 for the price of 1 deal, all that kind of stuff. We need that kind of feedback. I think it's really important. So, Barbara, you've got your hand up. Let's jump over to you on this.
The first example I had of resilience, Ben, was when when I lost my brother at a young age. I was 12 years younger than he, and he died of cancer. Watching my parents come back from that, because they had lost 5 babies between my brother and the birth of me.
Oh my goodness.
And it was a real lesson in stoicism, courage, and resilience. And, we all have difficult times, but I often think back to my admiration of how they dealt with it. At the time, I didn't put a title on it of resilience. I just recognized it as something special. But I think resilience comes along when we're conquering adversity of any kind.
Yeah.
It can be in business, it can be physical. But overcoming the challenges, they're not easy, but quite often growth and strength can result from those experiences.
Yeah.
If we just remain resilient.
Yeah.
And persevere.
Yeah. 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 That's huge. I can't even begin to imagine, Barbara, what that was like for you as a sister, and especially not, from the perspective of your parents.
Well, I was sent away to boarding school because my brother and I, it was almost like we had a telepathic connection. And the family doctor thought it was too much stress for me to be under.
Yeah.
So my parents agreed to send me to boarding school.
Yeah.
I'm at boarding school when my brother's going down the slippery slope. And I go home and he passes on, and I attend the funeral, and I go back to school. And there are house mothers looking after the girls in this school. And I was sobbing one night. And she came in and she just screamed at me. Sobbing isn't going to bring your brother back.
Oh my goodness.
So dry up your tears, buck up, and get to sleep. Well, how do you sleep after a tirade like that?
Yeah.
And, that's another example of that I've thought of over the years. When somebody's going through a difficult time, that's the exact opposite of what you want to do. So it's an example of what not to do and how to approach it from a different direction.
Yeah. And this, you raise a very important point here. And, we're talking here about, the value of having those people in our corner for us, that gives us the perseverance and the resilience to keep going. But I think it's also important to recognize that there are those around us that need us in their corner. We don't typically ask for it, right? We don't go up to people and say, I could really do with a pick me up right now. Could you help me out? right? We don't, wouldn't it be nice if we could do that though, from time to time, right? And just,
Except when we're trying to get them to try the collagen.
yeah, exactly. But I think it's worthwhile. This is kind of call to action number one here, is be mindful of those in your team that are working, right? And reach out to them, let them know you appreciate them, encourage them for their efforts, and be that champion and that cheerleader for them. One of the most important responsibilities we have as leaders of our businesses is to be the greatest cheerleaders possible, right? So be a cheerleader for someone. Yeah, be a cheer. And I say that specifically as a call to action. Within the next couple of days, within the next 24 hours, find an opportunity to be a cheerleader for someone and make their day, right? More often than not, they're going to need it more than you realize, right? So it's really, really true. So with that being said, I want to pivot now to kind of the next kind of steps for application for this resilience. We cannot be resilient as entrepreneurs if we don't have these following two things. First, a clear vision of what we're trying to accomplish. Otherwise, what are we being resilient to? We're just being sucker punched by life, right? If we don't have a clear vision of what we're aiming for, what we're striving for, then resilience just becomes something very different. And so I want to talk a little bit about getting a very clear vision for what we want to achieve in our businesses in 2024. And the second part of that, this, I should say, is having a clear plan of action, because resilience is tied and linked in an entrepreneurial environment to strategy, execution, and that clear vision of what we're striving to achieve. If we remove those two elements, then we're doing stuff, and it might be good things, but we're not necessarily leading in any particular direction. We're kind of just working aimlessly and getting beaten around as the odds kind of weigh, kind of the law of averages kind of work against us, right? Because the law of averages means we get plenty of opposition, plenty of rejection, plenty of no's. That's kind of part of the system, part of the deal, right? But we'll get all of that stuff, but we won't have context for it, right? And it really, really helps. One thing that leads to resilience is context for those times where we do get knocked down. And that context comes from having a clear vision and having that experience of execution of our plans. So with that being said, let's just take a couple of minutes now. Anyone want to share what your vision is for 2024 with NICAM? And you can, it can be your year vision in terms of what I want to be by December 31st. This is what I want my business to achieve. It might be this month in terms of we're launching the new Pink Collagen Complex. We've got meetings going on. This is my vision for the next month, or for the next set of meetings, or for the next couple of months, whatever. So you can take it holistically, or you can take your next big thing that you're working to. But what's your vision for achievement in NICAM within this next 12-month period? Anyone want to share an exciting or compelling vision? Also, let me see. Lynn, you raised your hand, and then Leo, you digitally raised your hand. So we'll start with Lynn, and then we'll go to Leo.
Sure. This is a big step for me, Ben, because it's the first time I've done it. With some of my work with Dave, he always encouraged us to understand how our structure works. I would draw it on a piece of paper and so on. But this time, I finally went and took a large enough page that I created what I wanted the income to be for the end of the year, 12 months period. And then we broke it down 4 levels at least, calculating what would be one team, team 2, team 3, to the point where I know how many people need to be in each team. And then you can sort of divided how many golds you're striving for, how many silvers. So, and that's based only on our 6% the leadership bonus. And I was able to calculate that I need 70 individuals three levels under three teams, and it doesn't matter in a sense how many on each team. But that is the first time I was able to have a bird's eye view, but it's not so bad.
Yeah.
You know, if I put together three business builders that want to do what our compensation plan allows, 70 is doable. 70 team members in a year is doable now that I have a visual picture what it looks like.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great example of a wonderful goal, Lynn. It really is. And what I like about it is you've broken it down into a couple of things. One, you've got an income target for what
Yes.
you're wanting to earn and achieve, but you've been able to calculate it and say, based on the average performance of individuals in
Yes.
this business, this is how many people I need. This is kind of the structure that it needs to look like. And that gives wonderful clarity, doesn't it, in terms of...
Oh, first time that I could literally sit down with you on a napkin and I can draw it out.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
my next leader or next person said, I would like to do that. I think I'm confident enough to sit down with him or her and be able to say, this is what your structure looks like. Let's go find that first partner that wants to work with you.
Yeah.
So, and that's something I've learned from Dave. And it's just for me, I'm a technical background. I like numbers and it just resonates.
It's good. Yeah. Too often I've seen a strategy be in network marketing, throw enough mud at the wall and and eventually something will stick.
Yes.
Yeah. And what happens there is that works great for short-term motivation only. Right.
Well, yes.
Because you're really relying on something sticking quickly before things start kind of falling apart.
Right.
And you don't know what it looks like. You can't build a house based on just throwing mud at a wall.
Exactly.
Right? That's not how it works, right? And so this gives you clarity so that when the going gets tough, when you get rejection or pushback or obstacles or unexpected learning curves,
yes,
you can give it context and a framework. And I think that's fantastic. So
I just did it large enough and with pencil, of course, that I'm able to fill out and adjust. And when I put it on the wall, I'm able to see it every time I'm beside my computer, and it's just starting to anchor in my mind. Yeah.
Excellent. I love that. Love that. Thank you so much, Lynn. Really good sharing. Leah.
Hi, everybody. The Frenchie's coming. First of all, my big dream, everybody know that, is to be the first Royal Diamond in Quebec. Before the next 2025, before the next event and the 50th anniversary. That is my big dream, and I wrote it on the page with the 5 cents. Okay, what I see, what I touch, I'm already a Royal Diamond. Right? That's what I think. For 2024, my goal is to be a travel club on the road for that on this moment, and I want to bring with me on 5 people minimum on my group to a travel club, right? And my vision, I practice. That's why I learned English. I have an application, Bible for learning English, because I see me in the stage in California, from Montreal, the new diamond, Leo LeMay. Yeah, that's what I see. And I work for travel club and team ambassador at some time. You see, travel club, team ambassador, diamond for this year. And on the road for 2025 before the next event, big event, be a first Royal Diamond.
Yeah. I love that, Leah. I love that you shared the example of the scene, the moment in time when you're on the stage being recognized at the Nikken event and being celebrated. It reminds me, there was a famous American gymnast, and frustratingly, his name is on the tip of my tongue and it's escaping me. But I'll share his story. He won the gold medal for gymnastics for the States. I can't remember what year it was. And in one of the interviews, he was asked this question: what a wonderful moment it must have been when you stood on the podium, right? And you accepted that gold medal on behalf of the United States, and you won that medal. What was it like getting up there for the very first time, winning that gold? And he said it was really interesting. He said, because it wasn't my first time. Every time I practiced, I imagined to myself that very moment where I stood on the stage and I took that gold medal, the anthem was played, and that moment was mine. He said that wasn't my first time. I had experienced that thousands of times before. And I love that the power of imagery and imagination and projecting into that moment, I think is huge. And it's certainly more of us need to do that. So I love that you're integrating that into your vision, Leo, because that makes it real and tangible. And world champions use that very technique to get what they want. So
that's what I said to my Zoom. I have it every Monday night at 7 o'clock Zoom with my group. And what I said, Leo Lemaire from Montreal, Quebec, the new diamond. But I reach Mireille, platinum. I just do the same thing with my group. I said, imagine all the 5 people with me, new platinum, new diamond.
Yeah.
Quebec Blast.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I love it. I love it because you certainly won't get to diamond without these guys becoming platinums, right? It's a joint effort. It's a community victory. It's a team victory for sure. Yeah, I love that. Barbara, back to you, and then we'll jump over to Sue.
Just a quick comment. Lynn is in my downline, and I just wanted to acknowledge the growth that she has shown in the last year, because she had a focus, she knew what she wanted to do and where she wanted to go, and she's been diligent in following that path. I am just so very proud of what she has accomplished. Actually, it started last year, but it's far more focused this year, and she's going to do it.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention was, you talked about vision. I was supposed to get another hip transplant sometime between August and October. But I had a sign in my apartment that it was going to happen on or before April 1st. And I focused on that every day. And it's right opposite it's in my line of sight right here where I sit. Well, I'm having it on the 5th of April. It might not be on or before the 1st,
but it's
not
close.
September or October or November.
Yeah.
So, I mean, planting a vision and focusing on it really can manifest what you want.
Yeah. I love that. I've applied that same principle when I was running for Team Kaizen. I had a board in my bedroom, and you could see it from the end of our bed. It had our plan, our monthly plan, all kind of mapped out. We could check it every week, every month. We'd update it, Kim and I. It was visible, it was tangible, and it was in a very prominent place where we would see it every day. And we'd also apply what Leo has often done as well, which he declares it. He's got a goal and he announces it to the field and says, "This is what we're doing." And I love that. That kind of puts the fire under your seat and gets you going. So, Sue, do you want to unmute and share your thoughts?
Well, I will say that I really had a difficult time trying to explain Nikken before we've come out now with their newest branding, connecting with nature. And since we started talking about that, I don't know if that was the end of the year, beginning of the year, it really has gotten me excited. I have a big calendar, and my goal is to become gold by the end of this year. But
Excellent.
I'm excited about it because I really have the ability, I feel like it's given me to be able to talk about Nikken and why Nikken is such a great company. I'm so excited about our pink party. I'm actually chairing it for our group, here in Ohio, the one in Lorain, Ohio. And I really expect good things to come from it. And I just keep telling myself, thinking positive and just keep on keeping on.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and congratulations on a wonderful goal. So every confidence that you're
I
going to
just
get that.
know I can do it,
Yeah,
and I am going to do it.
yeah, excellent, excellent. I love that. I love that confidence. So these are great examples of a very clear and compelling vision that we need. And it's, like I said before, it gives perspective to our experiences when we do get knocked down and we get bumps in the road. Because every time we set a goal, I was talking about this on an earlier team call this afternoon. There's never been a time in my life where I have put together a business plan, a strategy, or a goal where I haven't been required to change or alter it or adjust in some way because things haven't gone exactly as I expected. It's very, very rare. I'm not sure if there's anyone on the call tonight on the Zoom that can raise their hand and say, yeah, I've had moments where I've set a goal. I'm going to be diamond at the end of the year by December 31st, and it hasn't quite gone according to plan, or it's gone exactly as you expected. I can only think of one example where I've seen that happen, and it was a very rare example. It was Wolfgang Sonnenberg. He was a Royal Diamond Crown Ambassador, sorry, in Europe a number of years back, and he set a goal on this particular date at this particular time. I'm going to be a Crown Ambassador, and he did it. He was very methodological. Yes, I'm struggling to get my word out. Thank you. And very, very strategic, very specific as to how he crafted that and made it happen. But it's a very rare moment where I think that happens, right? Most of the time we need to pivot. I want to talk about that in just a sec, but Barbara Petrucci, you got your hand up.
I do. You know, it's at first for me, I have to think about the distinction vision and goals, because I don't get inspired by goals, but I get inspired by vision.
Yeah.
And there's a distinction. But I remember going to the big events and we would go to the stage. So maybe you have to go and pretend at your church or the theater, and we would stand on the stage and be up there and accepting our jackets. And so here's my Royal Diamond jacket that I got, and you know, we just had to get the jacket. There was no question about it. Was just amazing. So but I remember Igor, me, Steve, a whole bunch of us, Linda Morris, we would stand on stage and we would applaud the other. We'd take pictures of, like, you know, now thank you for, you know, my team and my people, and this is the crowd, and this whole section's my team. Who was saying the 70 people? You know, this whole section's my team, and we would just visualize and play and you know, and we used to have goal training, remember? And that was, you had to draw out your group. And so I just did this the other day, and I was looking at, and I'm starting to color code it. So these are like all my frontline people and my team, and it's like, okay, I really have a lot of people that are playing, and it's okay, now what? And so one of the things, I love playing games, and y'all might know that when I talk raffles or I talk parties or I talk different things. So I play games with myself. And so Denise is on the call tonight, and it's like, okay, who would have a pink party? And when I saw the map of the United States and Louisiana was in pink, I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get these guys on board and I got to get them registered. And so two of them got together and they're having a pink party in Louisiana. So that was exciting. And then Marsha's in upstate New York. And so I'm like, who else would have a party? Now, to me, a party's 2 people.
Yeah.
3 people. It's just starting an area all over again. Like, who do you know in St. Louis? Who do you know in Michigan? I mean, where's Jeannie? Nevada's not on, y'all. You know, you're not on the map, and you know, it's like, wait, you know, all the different places aren't on the map. That I mean, Phoenix, sorry. And so it's like, who do you know? Because we know a lot of people, especially the seasoned ones that have been around Nikan for a while. Who do you know that can play? So for me, Ben, goals don't excite me. They sometimes make me freeze.
Yeah.
And I figured out some of the pivot going on for me is my vision wasn't big enough
Yeah.
anymore. And I had to get a vision big enough. And I remember when Mike stood up and said that he was going Royal Diamond, he had something ridiculous like 13 or, you know, maybe even 19 silver, something, you know, a lot to make it happen. And he had this in deadline, like maybe it was like October and he was like December. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he's putting himself right on the line, you know, like just right on the line, declaring it, stating it. And he said something that was really amazing. He said that he had a vision about everyone having the opportunity to read. And like, you know, like just having something way beyond what you know for yourself to be true, right? Like, and what does that entail? I have no idea. But you know, getting books out, getting things out, the world as a whole. But you know, to me, that was something I could ride on the skirt tail for a little while until I could figure out my own, what is that I aspire to contribute to. If money and time were no object. Oh, and Bob Proctor asked me, okay, $50,000 a month, Barbara, how is that going to change your life? Where are you going to be? If you had everybody just think about it if you had $50,000 coming in a month, how does that change your life? You know, it's like, even if it's 15,000, you know, or 22,000 a month, and where would you be playing? And what arenas would you be contributing to? And that's the mindset of this jacket. I mean, I'm traveling, I'm doing stuff. I never wear a jacket like this. I mean, y'all know I'm like more the girly girl, dressy up, whatever. But hey, I have the jacket. It's got my name embroidered on it. You know, it's like, you know, we made it to Royal Diamond. And Ben, it's not, I'm going to use the wrong word, so I need to have to figure out how to create it, but the do it again, right? It's not like we renewing Nikan or we relaunching Nikan. No, we're just awakening to another level of it. And there are people out there that love Nikan and they might have let their things lapse. And we just have to figure out how they want to play, or if they would be willing to play with us. And what does that look like? Like, how can we come from service rather than, as someone said on a call earlier, it was a different training, but it was a network marketing training. And they said, you know, I don't know why, but every time I see people, I think of numbers, I think of money. And it's like, no wonder you're having an issue of resistance, because you're just, you know, they're not people and you're not coming from service. You're just coming from number one, number two, you know, that'd be $30, this much, that sale. You know, if we can look at coming from service to these people and that we're all living longer, let's look at how can we not age as we're living longer? How can we thrive and have our agility and vitality and stamina at any age? So anyway,
I love that, Barbara. It's so what you're saying here, I think, is a great takeaway for us all, is that as we look at clarifying our vision or having a clear vision, you know, in terms of what we want to achieve and become with Nikan, that for it to be really compelling, because the purpose of the vision is to move us into action, right? It's the seed that gets everything created, right? So it begins there. In order for vision to be really compelling, it needs to involve contribution and purpose. It needs to have meaning and value. Yeah, so it's not simply about numbers. It's bigger than that. You know, and I you know, someone said this to me once, you know, a few years back. They were like, when I was working on the corporate side and was putting together kind of corporate strategies, and you've got to have all these, you know, every year you'd have to put these plans together and present them to your boss and say, okay, this is our plan for this year, and this is the budget associated, blah, blah. You go through that whole process. And this was just a great insight. Yeah, not that this is how I was thinking, but it was just a great metaphor that stuck with me. And he said, Ben, he said, let's imagine that you are, running a car dealership, the Mercedes car dealership. If you, as the managing director of the car dealership for Mercedes, had the goal to create enough sales throughout the year of cars to pay for your salary only, as long as you're covered, you're fine, right? What would happen to the business? It would sink, right? It tanks. And boy, you get a very clear image of failure very quickly in a moment like that, right? He said it's the same with network marketing. When we're putting together our goals, if we want them to be compelling, when we have a vision that we want to embrace and encourage others to participate in, it can't be limited to our own personal achievement. It's got to be bigger than that. Which is why, and everyone's kind of shared examples of, other people being enrolled into that vision in order to participate and win and have a wonderful experience. So I think we're coming away with some great lessons here. I want to kind of finish with one last takeaway and then we'll wrap up. And that is, as we articulate these visions and as we run towards them, as people are doing, heading towards Royal Diamond, heading towards gold, heading towards all of these March 9th pink party events and what have you, and getting other people enlisted in our cause and in our mission. As we look at all of that and as we move forward, we are going to need to pivot and adjust on a consistent basis. And the way that we do that effectively, going back to that quote by Henry Ford, is failure is simply a chance to try again more intelligently, right? If we are going to try again more intelligently and exercise that resilience, we need to have good observation of what is happening. Yeah. And so, and this will certainly come up. I think, I'm sure it'll come up in tomorrow's conversation with Kim, but because one of the ways that she has really thrived on Instagram and done well, where she's had, countless examples of content going viral and getting, thousands more people kind of joining and following her and engaging and what have you, is she's always looking at what works and what doesn't. She doesn't just post consistently. People say, if you want to get the algorithms working for you, you got to post every day. You got to post twice a day. You got to have this many reels and this many stories, and it's all about consistency. But if you're consistently doing the wrong stuff, then it doesn't matter, right? So we've heard it said that 10,000 hours of practice creates an expert, yeah. But if you practice badly, you will not become an expert. And Elaine, I'm sure you'll relate to this as a singer, right? And as a musician, I grew up playing trombone. I played in jazz bands and what have you throughout my teenage years, and music was my life. And I practiced every day so that I could have the muscles in my lips that I needed to get the range that I needed, my embouchure and all that kind of thing. And but if I practiced badly, I would develop terrible habits that would hold me back. I get the opposite effect. You need good habits. And the way you get good habits is you evaluate what you're doing consistently. Is it producing the right result? Even if it's a micro result, yeah? Not the big win at the end of the story, but the little small steps of victory along the way. How is this action being received? Yeah, so when I'm inviting people, if I go out there and I invite 100 people to my my pink day on the 9th of March, and no one comes back and says yes, then my invitations are not being effective, right? I need to evaluate that and do something different. And hopefully I would be evaluating before I got through 100 people. But after each one, I'd encourage self-evaluation as a critical skill to develop. It's really, really important. Whenever we speak to someone afterwards, before you go in, evaluate what are going to be some of the ways that I do this effectively. Look for that. And afterwards, how did I do? Was I clear? Was I direct? Was I kind? Was I courteous? Was my instruction compelling? Was it exciting? Did I listen enough? Did I respond to their questions well? Ask yourself these questions and evaluate, because that's what helps you understand what matters most when it comes to getting your results. We live in a world now, especially in that digital space, where attention is limited. You know, if you want to thrive on social media, as an example, you got to learn how to grab people's attention in less than 3 seconds. You know, and here we were back in the day, you know, with 1 hour long PowerPoint presentations and flip charts going through, and now today, get someone's attention in 3 seconds or you lose them. It's insane. And then do that repeatedly, you know, and that is a real skill, to be able to fine tune and craft your message to the point that you can grab someone's attention in a heartbeat. So, but what that teaches us is the importance of evaluation, feedback, self-observation, and self-awareness with what we're doing. So our takeaways for tonight's call: 1, as we strive to be resilient, recognize the power of being a great cheerleader to someone else. So invitation number 1 was, within the next 24 hours, have a cheerleader moment for someone on your team, right? And more often than not, they will need it more than you realize, right? We don't wait to be asked. We just need to get out there and do it. And very rarely do we ask others to be our cheerleaders, but boy, do we love it when they are, right? So create one of those moments, and you'll make someone's day, and you'll give them a better experience at being resilient. Step 2, of course, we know that vision is critical to being resilient. It gives clarity, it gives perspective. I want you to evaluate what your vision looks like. Is it compelling? Is it inspiring? Is it bigger than you are? And it doesn't need to be so big that it's overwhelming for you and it causes you to freeze, but it should create excitement and cause you to move. Yeah. So have that vision that is compelling. Have those moments. Create a moment like Leo defined, where you can picture yourself being recognized, celebrated, or having that win, having that victory. What does that moment look like for you? Paint that picture. Barbara, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I just want to underline something too. It's like we're having a coming out party. It's been a long time since we've had an in-home or a guest event, or if you're doing it down the street and such. And I just want to underline that fear and excitement have the same body sensation. And that, you know, you can have trepidation, you can have all these angst that I'm getting on the phone and you're about to call. But if you just, it could be excitement. It could be the next connection, or just connecting with them. I did that just last week. I called someone, and there's a lot going on. I think her dog had been really sick and a lot of things happening. So I just let her talk, right? Yeah. I just got her. And I didn't do anything about NECAN or say anything about that. I just let her vent. But just know that we all go through that. Every performer that's getting on stage has the butterflies and the thing and whatever. And it could be nerves, it could be anxiety, but it also could be excitement and thrilling. So, you know, just kind of make up that it's going to be good and that it's going to be fun. And the whole fake it till you make it kind of thing did work for me with NECAN, because I remember talking to doctors, and at least I knew more about magnets than the doctors did. You know, I would be like so scared to talk to a doctor, you know, whatever. But I would somehow get in the door. And it's like, you know what could go wrong? Like you said, the worst is it's you and one other person that's having this event. And then you say, you know what? That was our pre-launch. Let's have another one next Thursday or Wednesday, or let's look at the church, or let's look at Susie having it down the street for me, or the next one across town. And just look at having these other, and we're getting the flyers together, we're getting the things signed up, we're getting pink sticks and cups, and just acknowledge your wins along the way, because it's fun, and we're contributing to people, and we're helping them feel better along the way. So I just wanted to add.
I love it. Yeah. So let's get that vision nice and clear. Let's get it compelling. Let's involve other people. Let's be willing to share it. And imagine in your mind's eye that moment where your goal is achieved, your vision is realized. Live it 1,000 times over, like Peter Vedmeyer. Thank you, Elaine, for the reminder of the name. That's exactly who it was I was thinking of. And you'll have that moment come to fruition. It'll come to pass. And the last call to action: self-evaluation. If there is a habit to develop, it's self-awareness and self-appraisal. You know, go through each activity and evaluate and look for ways to do better. because it's not just the practice that matters. It's good practice. It's the right habits. And we get that through evaluating and pivoting early and frequently and consistently until we master it and crack the nut. So I hope this has been helpful. Thank you very much. I love the participation and all the examples that you shared tonight. Absolutely wonderful. And it inspires me to get there and get my vision a little clearer too. So thank you guys. And we'll see you tomorrow on the 9 a.m. Pacific call. Take
Thanks,
care.
Thank you,
Ben.
Ben.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It was